for tonight is Nimona Sayed. She is a student that has won a lot of award in and out of school. She is a sophomore in high school, attending CECA, as we all know as Colorado Early College of Aurora. She is on track to graduate early and determined to attend Yale or UCCS of Colorado Springs. Am I right? Thank you. To become a lawyer. Please join me as I welcome Nimona. I have Samuel Gabriel Michael. He is an immigrant of also volunteered as a commissioner at the International Immigrants and Refugees 14-year-old son. Nice. Professions in Colorado. Please join me to welcome Samuel Gabriel Michael. All right, let's dive into the business for today. Are you ready? All right. So this event actually has two parts theme. To actually get your the first part is the world is changing fast. Education is not. What is your gut reaction when you hear that?
I agree completely. To Senegal, the country that I'm from, with my family, and my parents took me and my brothers to a museum. It's an exhibit of a general that was very celebrated that my parents were admiring. And the first thing they asked my brothers and I was, "Do you know this man?" My brothers and I, we had no idea what either of my parents were talking about. We did not know who this man was. And that is a perfect example of how education is not meeting the standards that it should. Everyone in this room remembers learning about segregated schools. A long time ago, schools were segregated between white. I think that the education has not changed since then. Students still learn the same things that they learned back when schools were segregated and today. The land of the great, they're not taught about other countries or they're justice. When they're taught about Africa, they're taught that Africa is filled with huts and villages. They're not taught that it's a modern country. When they're taught about Asia, they're taught that Asia is a country or a continent. Not meeting the standards that it should meet. Education is failing its students. Another off of school, they all went online, they all went remote. Me personally, I skipped 8th grade. felt, because I went from 7th grade to high school. That's a big jump. You are not academically big jump, and a lot of students, education system helping those students and giving those students what they need, giving those students the time that they needed. Education just kept going on, leaving a lot of time to stop blaming students for failing because the education system.
Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you so much, Mamona, for that wonderful contribution. I really agree with you on that. So I'm going to move to Ikuda. We actually have 2 minutes to answer the question. Okay? So if you actually agree or disagree with this statement.
Good evening, everybody. I absolutely agree. Think of that statement in the globe. Our children go to school and they're not learning. You've done everything that you tried to do, and then you feel like your children are not getting what they should get. The children went homeschooling. When the time came for them to go back to school, or they did not have enough Chromebooks, so instead of them to at least try to a point that they were, the years is going, the world is changing, but the education is behind. I can give an example, like right now, schools. Even today, my daughter does not have a Chromebook. There's another issue of social media. For me, I understand that we have to go with it, but how can we jump into it when we don't have resources for them to be able to understand or to use, or they don't have the equipment to be able to learn? What makes the fact that I know they've started this thing called iReady. The children don't read books anymore. I remember when I was growing up, I read to read books. My children reading.
Thank you so much, Ikuda. All right.
Yes, I agree with the statement that the world is changing rapidly. One of the things that changing the world is COVID. My colleagues they mentioned it. It's COVID. The impact of COVID is very, very high. Instead of schools are instead of somewhere. The kids, our kids, and instead of spending like their times like 8 hours or more, like more, maybe 10 hours. You have to stay with them, and then the school is changed. The COVID changed it. And then the other one is the social media. The social media impact it's that we get from the social media. I mean, it's the pain is still in our hearts. Around the community that I'm around, we have lost like 12 kids. It's related with social media, TikTok, like a drug use, and then many of us within the fruit of or the impact of social media. Also, this, yeah, it's changing. The world is changing. The population. It's the same. The schools are the same. I mean, in one classroom, it may be around like a bunch of students are learning in one classroom.
Thank you. So this will actually take me to the second, the last, which is let's turn our. Can you tell us about a time when you advocated to improve something about the school or the district? Did you feel that you were heard and listened to? Did anything change because of you speaking up? I would like to start with Ikuda.
Yeah. On a broader way. And I was like, what does it mean to be successful? In the past 2 years, a solid acquisition of the 3 R's, reading, writing, in the core academic subjects may have been the measure of attaining education. The world we are living now requires radical different in orientations to be effectively increasingly complex societies, globalized economy to fit in. After what they learn in school, because she does it so fast, so she needs more than her peers. But unfortunately, since COVID hit, she does not get extra. So we're wasting these minds. And I've tried to ask, what are they doing? Can we give her something more to do? Because she needs something more done. It makes me sad. An empty mind is a playground of the devil. You have these children that are brilliant, but we're not meeting their needs. When they act up, I receive a phone call that your child was talking or was jumping in the class. The answer is not calling me. The answer is we need to figure out how are we meeting the needs of these children that are, their IQ is higher than. If we can meet them, then we will lower.
Thank you so much, ma'am. A time like advocated to improve something.
Her daughter specifically, because the way her daughter is, I was always ahead of all my classmates to the point where I had nothing to do in class. And I feel like this is not just me, but this is a lot of students. A lot of students are not focused, not learning, to the point where they don't have anything to do, therefore they act up. And schools solve this by suspending their students. That's not helping anything. That's not helping the student or the school. All that's doing is sending that one student back to home where they can't learn. They can't do anything. They can't really improve when you're just suspending. Try to advocate, they're just seen as exactly that, students, children, people who do not know what they're talking about, therefore they should not. At a principal, and he was not trained to be a principal, but he was my principal, and he was very unjust with his actions. He would make racist comments, he would dislike to dress code, all of it. And when the Student Board of Education was not okay, they were all the ones that all of this impacts directly.
Thank you so much, Lemona. So there is this important question that we really need to talk about, which is bullying and violence in school, which affect many students and adults too. Lemona, I'm gonna go back to you, okay? Do you feel safe and ready to learn when you are at school?
In all honesty, a lot of times I do not. When you are in school, when teachers aren't there, when you're there by yourself. Kids fighting, like physically fighting, is very common to see. Violence is very bullying. All of it is something that you have to look at every single day. I do not know how many times people have offered me drugs, and that is a real thing, every single day. I am 15 years old. I should not be exposed to that, neither should anybody else. And yet when I say I do not smoke or I do not do drugs, people are very surprised actually. People are more surprised than they aren't. And that should not be common for high school students. But it's not only high school students, it's middle school students. And it's only gonna get younger and younger and younger. Their anger, their sadness out in the wrong way. Students do not know how to take out their anger, therefore they take it out in the wrong ways, whether it be in violence or in drugs. And schools deal with a lot of the times the first time resort, which it should not be. Suspension should be the last time resort, and yet I see it happen all the time. Students are either suspended and they go back to streets where they get this behavior, where they find drugs, where they find people to fight, or students are suspended and then go back to school. Students. And it's either students that did not do that before, like for example, I was raised in a good home. I did not know anything about drugs until I got into like 6th grade, and then I was exposed to it. Students like that are gonna be naive and say they have little siblings, affect their little siblings, or they're going to not do it and be bullied for it, and it's not fair.
Please, let's give it up for her. And for saying the truth, and for being strong, and for... Do you feel comfortable and confident about your child's safety when you send them to school?
No. And she had concussion 3 times. The things I get is a phone call, come and take your child to Children's Hospital. I'm at work. I'm a single mom. I have to work. Nothing was done. It hurts. The 3rd time, when they called me and I went to the school, I told the principal, this is gonna end. Next time you're gonna call me, my child maybe is paralyzed. Is that what you're waiting for you to do something? They did not say anything. I had friends, I talked to friends, and we say if somebody needs to do something, but this bullying needs to end. Because the child was, it's not like different bullies, it's one person who was the parent of that child. And I did that just because she had a brother who was in 1st grade who was a bully too. So I knew something was wrong in that household. They did not show up and nothing was done. I called a meeting with the school security. I called so that I think I was serious. I called the board of the school, and I told them, I'm going to do something you will not all like. This is what they did, which I don't agree with. The child, you can say so, that they were not allowed to come back to the school, which means they went to another school. So my thing is, what are they doing in the other school to other? But it was just spread to another community. So I don't feel safe when my child go to school because of bullying, gun violence, drugs, as Mona said.
For her. Yeah, Ikuna, I really feel your pain. And yes, I agree with you. One way or the other, we have to stop with bullying. So, there are so many education leaders in this room today. And everyone loves talking about parental guilt. What is your idea of what parental involvement should look like? How can families and schools work together more effectively?
I just want to add up something from theirs and then.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
It is a time for me and for some parents, like, we're afraid where to, if you see schools are a learning place, as she mentioned, Maimuna mentioned it, like, I thought that my son, he doesn't know anything about drugs. And then one time when he is a 7th grade, 8th grade, I was asking him, hey, do you know, something about these things? Yeah, are you sure? Yeah, I know that. And then they do it in a, bathroom. And teachers in the school, what did they do? He told me that I thought that, the teachers are, following up but he told me there are security guys, and then if they saw we do that things, they do that things. Staff, but they didn't do any measurement, but they let them to do that again. So yeah, our parents' involvement should be included, because when school is online, nobody has told us. We don't know nothing, and then some parents, they don't know how to interact with the computers, and then they give us like a big school and a small house, and then it's the social media. It's like a big shark. It's inside our house. Sometimes when I ask my son or some parents, their kids, what they have to do. Yes, so if the schools, give us a chance to participate, our involvement, we will contribute. Then, challenge the difficulty that we have got.
Thank you so much. All right, so at this junction, we would like to take some few questions from the audience. So if you have any question, please, let's ask question. All right. So please introduce yourself, okay?
Oh, this is Abdullah Sati from Saudi Arabia. But I hear all the three speakers about the problems and solutions. What can we do about that? Ways they think will help reduce at least.
All right, Ikuna, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you, sir. Today we were meeting with families, school officials, and as a parent and students, we wanted the community to understand what we're going through. And so we wanted to voice the problem that we are facing, like the problem that I'm facing as a parent. I wanted other parents to hear. I wanted the school officials, and together then to help. How are we going to solve these problems? Because as a parent, when I'm scared that my child is going to school, I don't know what's going to happen, like what she said. They're going to get introduced to drugs, they get bullied. But when I voice, we just wanted to voice our cry out for everybody to hear.
All right, thank you so much, Ikuna.
Hello, I'm Lydia from Ghana. I appreciate all the concerns, and I was a single mom. I came here with my 3 kids alone. I came to DU, and I came as a teacher. We have one curriculum for the whole state, the whole country. I realized, but because I was a student, I got difference. So this is what I did. Son, very smart. And like your daughter, he's the first to receive the worksheets, and he's quickly done. And do you know, there was a paraprofessional class, and in that class they put my son. This was, he's always been very smart, but because he's a person of color, when they, of course, he's done within the first few. But I would talk to my kids. Of course, I was a single mom. There was nothing else to do. So I would talk to them, and he would tell me, Mommy, I was done, and this easy job. Others were not able to do it. So I got involved. I volunteered the little time I had in the classroom. And I told the teacher, as soon as he's done, I assigned him to help others. So he became a peer teacher. I went to the principal, and I said, I don't know why my son is in this new class. I bet if you should test all your kids, he will be in the very 1%. So why is he in this class? Of course, they will not be able to tell you why. So I got him moved. What I'm saying is we have to get more involved. I know it's difficult having pressure from home. All the bills you have to pay here is difficult. But as a teacher, I understood the importance of education. I worked one job, and I stayed with them. My elder daughter went to Regis. I looked for all the scholarships, and I was paying for her to attend Regis. I would drive almost 3 hours every day to drop them off at the bus stop. plays D1 soccer at Princeton University. The other graduated in neuroscience, Washington State, and the other Ohio Wesleyan. She is pre-med. We should please not focus too much on all the jobs. Our kids, as for the bank account, will not give you the pleasure you want. That bank account our priority. Let's get involved with them. I was alone with them and I'm very prayerful. You know, it may be superstitious, but when I was a single mom, I was very worried. Slumber party. What is a slumber party? They've been together all day. What else do they need? Slumber party. So I prayed. God told me, I had. Whenever you're going to church, pull them with you. So look, every church meeting, I pull all of them with. I don't leave them idle. I don't leave them on their own. When my son has to go to soccer practice, we are all there on the field with him. Get involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Jason Galden. Listen, I want to respond. The gentleman up front, he asked what can be done, what are some solutions. Well, one, you just heard it. Parental engagement, being passionately involved in what is happening with your children. But secondly, I want to be careful not to put that onus on parents and students. There are paid professional educators whose job it is to come up with those solutions and to solve those problems. I'm not putting that on the parents and students. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. And this will be the end of the first section for panel 1. Please, audience, give it a round of applause for my panelists here. All right, at this junction, I would love to introduce my role model. She's also a member. Please join me as I welcome Dr.
Thank you so much, Setin. And thank you, panelists. We really appreciated your answers and your input. My name is Dr. Ann Kiki, and it is my humble honor to be chairing the Parent Engagement Committee at the here at the African Leadership Group. I am very proud of my community. Don't you love the different accents and intonations that you heard? Check it out. Kidding. Well, at this junction, I would like to introduce to you an amazing man. He moved to Colorado, and he's winning the hearts of every single organization and community. He's also a husband, and he organization that he represents. He became the 6th president of on August 2nd, 2021. And that campus in Aurora and Denver, which is CCA, is a minority serving institution, providing instruction to over 10,000 students through its 350 square mile service area. He was featured in many different magazines, but today he is featured here among the immigrant. Ian Mordecai Brownlee. Well, wait, before you do that, in French, his name is Mardoché. In Spanish, his name is Mordecai. Please welcome Dr. Mordecai Ian Brownlee.
Well, good evening, everyone. How are you all? To talk a little bit louder. It's an absolute honor to be with you all here on today and representing the Community College of Aurora. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge two of my colleagues from our recruiting department that man the table downstairs, and thank you all so much for being here. Also, I see that our board of directors for the Aurora Public Schools, as well as Superintendent Munn, is here. I see Cherry Creek is also here today, and again to the African Leadership Group, Papa Dia, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll tell you, to be time sensitive, and I'm sure that you all will hold me accountable for that time sensitivity. Raised in Texas, so as we were talking about dictions and dialects and different pronunciations, let me apologize in advance if words like y'all come. And I told him that even though I'm going to call Colorado home, there's two things I won't be getting rid of, and that's my truck and my boots. So it's an honor to be with you all on today. With that said, the Community College of Aurora, where I have the honor to represent as president, it's always amazing to me as individuals are learning about the history. This community is learning about the history of Community College of Aurora. And just because we have also imperative to also share with you the history of Community College of Aurora. We are the youngest community college in the Colorado Community College system. We're 39 years young. Our birthday is May 20th, 1983. The reason I call that out is because when we were approved to be our own community college, it was a long, long fight, 30-plus year fight for Aurora to have its own community college. And at that time, part of what was provided to us was the creation. There was a lot of work that went into the final creation of our community college, but here's the very interesting thing. Inflation was much higher. It was very interesting because the community college was granted to Aurora. However, there was no building, there was no land, nothing was provided to Aurora other than the permission to become its own community college. Now, learning the historical significance of the city of Aurora, it is where our immigrants, it is where the diversity of our greater Denver community resided, because that is where they could afford being the most diverse college, if you didn't know, in the state of Colorado. It goes to the histories of who we are and the is changing fast. Education is not turning outcries into outcomes, because we now must think about the disruption that has now happened over time. Just use Aurora for the example. It was the only place where individuals, many of those that come from families that look like us in this room, could afford both in the expansion, the disruption that is happening in that particular community. We now have to ask the question about who it is that we're families. Disruption has finally come to higher education. It's this reality that wasn't necessarily recognized. We always talked about disruption in technology. We always talked about disruption in education, in economics, but not necessarily education. And I will tell you that it's very interesting because industry has been paying attention the entire time to these various disruptions. Innovation is a word that we've used. Change is a However, as we're hearing now tonight, the question is, has change really been on the agenda? Has innovation, or has it been a brochure? Has it been a commercial? Has it been another marketing ploy? Yes, we classrooms. We talk about social and economic mobility being a need and a focus, yet the poverty gap continues to widen in our respective communities. What is happening? So we must now understand not only has disruption come to higher education, the question is what are we going to do for change? What are we going to do to be a part of the change? You know, it's interesting to me that Cliff, in my space, it is essentially from a strategic enrollment management standpoint, it is the understanding that the baby boom generation essentially the youngest baby boomer will be 65 years old. There are two different names that are used for this term. They call it the 20. Okay, don't blame me. Just blame the researchers. Okay, highlighting this on with the conversation of disruption, because old should not be the systems of today. We were able to essentially create systems years ago that were aids and bandages and duct tape and super glue around broken processes and infrastructure and hoping to promote change. It always amazes me that as children we would sit on the stoops and on the blocks and on the streets and at our schools and we would dream. We would dream about finally one day being successful. We would dream about one day having maybe that house or that home, that car, having that particular job. Generation between X and millennial and now Z are the most educated generations represented ever in. What has happened? What has happened to the dream of change? We finally have been given the opportunity. What is happening to where we can't rest at night? Our children are being abused, yet we're making and seeking and pursuing more money in the midst of disruption, and we're allowing for there to continue to be a gap between the have and the have-nots. Yet as long as my family is eating, I guess everything is okay. What are we doing to embrace this disruption? Some folks call it development. Are we now creating spaces for those that don't have what we have, that is beyond just the 30 cents campaign? What are we doing to actually be a part of the change? Declining trust, accountability. I do believe in shared governance. I believe deeply. One of the criticisms, as groups like the Business Roundtable, certainly the African Leadership Group, Colorado Succeed, some of these other entities, it's very interesting. Organizations, and then to say, what is higher education? What is the education system going to do to be a part of the change? And instead of years and years and years of waiting for this change, they've now, industry has begun to create their own systems. If you have industry now and recruiting students and placing them directly on tracks and growing their own workforce, rather than the whole traditional model of you've got to go to and receive a 4-year university degree or a 2-year degree in order to get a job. Industry is now beginning to work around its own systems that it played a role in developing in education and higher education. So then what are we going to do to respond for these needs of change? Here are some solutions I would like to provide on tonight very quickly. One, systems will only do what they're designed to do. I'll say this one more time. Systems will only do what they're designed to do. I remember there was an institution I was serving in the South, and I had reached a point of great frustration where and I understand that there reached a boiling point where I didn't care about the title. I didn't care who heard it. Something needed to be said. And to be quite honest, I was getting ready to make a mistake. To the vice president's office. Gentleman, he saw the countenance on my face and he pulled me into his office and he says, Mordecai, And he gave me a moment. He was a trained licensed professional counselor. He gave me a moment to just kind of collect myself. And he says, the time will come where you will be in a position where you can enact change. You have to remember this moment. Interestingly, success can lull you to sleep. Success can lull us to sleep. Why? The own comforts of our own home, the own comfort. It shifts and changes the urgencies, the need for change, yet understanding that still remains with me today, that systems will only do what they are designed to do. The question now is, how are we going to change? Unfortunately, our institutions have become institutionalized. Unfortunately, the whole idea of the learning transformational. I can teach you to remember who made changes, yet am I equipping you to make change? What is it that we're truly teaching them to be the change that our world so desperately needs? Or are we finding more restrictions and ways to keep them quiet in their seat and to reprimand them for just being who they naturally are? We must develop collective agendas towards change. This amazes me as we study history and we look at the revolutions that happened in the 60s, the civil rights movements, respectively, in this country, and the 70s, and various movements that have changed laws and policies that we still follow on today. We understood as a people the power of a collective. Today, it is more about individualization. It is more about one voice rather than all voices. What together as a team to ask the question, what is our 5-point agenda towards change, where we as collectively as communities and a people say, this is who we want in leadership, this is what we accept in leadership, or this and learning outcomes and curriculums that we're going to get behind, yet we all stand individually yelling change, yet we won't change together. Changing fast, education not turning outcries into outcomes. The question now is, what are we going to do as we leave here tonight? We can sit in these chairs in our nice clothes and our nice cars and up to work tomorrow and do nothing differently. It is more than just making the Facebook post, the Twitter post, the serve a venue and a medium as to share our voice and our agendas. It is not the work in itself, which brings me to my third. To sustain change. Unfortunately, we've gotten used to a campaign mindset. I'll say that again because I know it's election season. Unfortunately, we've got ourselves for the promotion of change, yet we will not create systems to sustain the change. It starts with the mission. Strategic planning 101. Under a mission, under every mission, there is an objective. Under objectives, there are goals. Those goals are what you do of those objectives, and under those goals you have what are known as key performance indicators or key performance metrics. It holds it accountable. Change, we want change of what? We then identify what that change is. We then work collectively around that particular item of change, and we identify what those objectives goals. We hold them accountable and we share the outcomes through key performance indicators. Now, if we can understand that from an industry mindset, we must understand that from as parents, as students. Your voice is very powerful. As students, as legislators, What are we doing collectively to create these agendas? For the sake of time, let me offer this last comment here, this last point, and that is going back to a previous point made about transactional versus transformational. We have to be right now. If you decided not to listen to me, you can get on Amazon and buy yourself whatever you wanted right now. Instantly. If you're a Prime member, him and 8 of him, you expect to have that item delivered to your home. Everything is instant. Conversation about learning how to cook rice. Now, granted, let me be very clear. My wife and I, compared to what our grandparents, how they cooked rice. You understand? We live in a very instant time, microwave society. Everything very instant. I see one of our other colleagues from instant, and we don't want to put in the work. We want change very instantly, and we don't want to put in the work. We don't want to put in the sweat. We don't want the whole threat of someone not liking me, being impacted due to the need for change. One of the conversations we've been having this place now home, and as we were looking at our data and running what was known as an academic audit, we began to look at graduate, and we ended up identifying 30 programs telling us that they would not hire anybody off of at CCA. Why are we even offering these programs anymore? Which I'm here to tell you, we're now sunsetting this year. We're now sunsetting 30 of those programs, and we have another 50 that will reallocate those funds to social and economic mobility, high wage, high demand opportunities. What good? And we know darn well as educators, you can't go and get a job with that credential. Versus transformational, the change must happen. And again, I'm coming to a close, and I look forward to this. About our theme, the world is changing fast. Education is not turning our cries into outcomes. There's work to do, and the work happens. It begins tonight, and it then happens. Change and understand what those outcomes are, and understand that it won't come with a 24-hour campaign. It won't come with a 72-hour campaign. It's going to take time, and it needs to be time willing so it can be intentional and create space for innovation and change to ensure that our children are safe, that we bring trust back to the education system, to the higher education system, and that we are able to say to our children and to ourselves that we have been the change that our world needed. Thank you so much for your time on time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brownlee. That was great. And I think it just covered about and will be talking about. At this point, if there's a question or two that you have for Dr. Brownlee, he is willing to answer.
Yes.
Worked with the African Leadership Group and teaching the women leadership programs, but also I'm a professor at DU. And education becoming such a political issue.
Yes.
Where do you stand? I mean, I was at a faculty meeting to struggle with. We literally had a very, this is a DU issue, so don't let anybody
Y'all, I just want to tell you. It is.
However, so we got issues like literally talking about what we cannot teach. Revisionist, whitewashed history, but such a bad thing, and those kinds of things. So it's a real political issue. And with that, and the struggle at the same time of the development of academic in school, it's the social development of the school system.
Yes.
So where does that stand? One, the development aspect of these young people from how do you deal with the political pressures
Yeah.
at work?
First question that I got for you, man. First thing I would tell you is I am a firm believer, and I've been privileged to serve in different opportunities to make certain representations. I always say that the funding models for our educational system must change and not just be improved. I'm talking radical revolution of these models. We say that we cherish development, however, development is not funded. The transformation of the student is not what we're funding. We're looking at outcomes that are more about, can you remember what I've told you, not share with me what you think. It's something has to give. It's kind of like one of those things I'm learning. We say that we want to promote equity and opportunity, yet what we find part of what will then change is what we're able to fund. And I think that that's where the change then happens. Who is it and the individuals that are put in elected and powerful positions to be a part of the change? Because otherwise they will not be sustained change, they'll be campaign change. That to say, if I'm capturing your question, of that change, the actual boots to ground of that change, part of the sustainability of it is ensuring that there are systems for that sustainability, and that was part of the infrastructure component that I was speaking of. And so I think that we can talk more offline as I see some times for call, but let's talk more offline. Thank you, my friend. Just one. Okay, there we go. All right.
Sake of time, we are going to stop here, but here's the good news. Dr. Brownlee is so in touch with the communities that he visits. He is willing to answer your questions. So we are going to make sure, as we know everybody has registered, that you get Dr. Brownlee's official email and you ask the question, and I promise you he's going to answer them.
That's right. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir.
African Immigrant Community in Aurora, 45% Ethiopian. And I just want to know, are we not enough that we can be overlooked and it can become a Hispanic Institute in Aurora?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
I just don't understand.
May I have permission?
Of course.
That's correct. That's correct.
I know what happened to him. I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you, but at the same time,
yes, sir,
we have to meet the needs of these people here that you come to speak to.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Out of respect of all those that are What I would say, sir, is your question is very powerful. I think it comes down to a sense of interpretation of what does it mean to be a Hispanic serving institution, which I think is the opportunity here. And so Hispanic serving institution is something that is designated to institutions. It's a category that certain threshold of Latinx Hispanic students that are enrolled in the Community College of Aurora. What has happened over time is that 34% of our student population now identifies as Hispanic Latinx. 21%, I think it's technically 20.4%, but we're going to say 21% tonight. 21% is African American Black. And then from there we have the other identities that are a bit of error in that reporting because it's determined on the individual who's completing the college application. By being a Hispanic serving institution, what that then does is it makes us eligible for the federal government, the Department of Education, for what is then known as Title V funds. Financial aid is the Title IV funding. Title V is bestowed upon institutions that have certain categories in terms of their classifications, Hispanic serving institution being one of them. I will also say, for the sake of this conversation, that I've served at 2 historical Black colleges and universities. I've served at St. Philip's College, which is a historical only HSI and HBCU in the country, and I've also taught at Morgan State in Maryland. Even then, as HB's historical designations and founding, it didn't necessarily mean that it only taught Black students. It meant then that there was funding made available through the Department of Education to honor who it was serving or how it was founded. And then those to say our Title V designations and our Hispanic serving institution designations, we are students serving this institution to utilize that designation and those fundings to serve all students.
I'm not even going to add anything, otherwise we're going to stay here all night. But how can you say no to Dr. Malcolm? Thank you for insisting. For your very, very wise input. We appreciate it. Before I introduce our second moderator, I just want to remind the audience that this month is African Immigrant Month, and this has been declared by the governor. So as our activities progress, I would like to invite you because we have some smart entrepreneurs. And we usually round up with a beautiful gala. So if you've never been, please, I invite you this year. Or you don't know if your organization has not, ask. And I'd love to see you all there. Absolutely, dress to impress. That's the theme. So, it is now my pleasure to invite to the stage Mrs. Vivian Men of 2 children in Cherry Creek School District. She's also very involved in the organization, in our organization and in the community. She is an immigrant. Countries are very, very close. Only that they speak English, we speak French. And rich. So, Miss Vivian, thank you for moderating this.
Hi everyone, my name is Vivian, and just a quick correction. In elementary, 2 in middle school, and just to recap on Dr. Mordecai's point, as a parent, one thing that he said that really touched me was the transactional part of it. Are we doing a transaction or are we being transformational? And then knowing that where we just literally drive through, I want a McDonald's, fries and chicken within seconds, you have it. We do not have that. And so there's something that needs to give. And it goes back to the mom at the back who gave an example of having to sacrifice working several jobs to be and be able to impact the kids in a positive way. How do we do that? How do we do that as community? We need to give something. I would like to invite people. Imam Shafi. Imam Shafi is of the Islamic Outreach Center of Colorado, which is a religious non-profit organization. He was born and raised in Kenya and has both a bachelor's and a master's degree in Islamic studies with several diplomas. He is multilingual with Arabic, English, Swahili, and Duolo under his belt. He is an advocate, a husband, and a father to 8 children, 6 boys and 2 girls. Our next panelist here is Tere Esquibel. He's a co-founder and executive director of Ednium, where he partners with public school alumni to build an infrastructure for homegrown talent to live and lead in making an impact on the education system. He's a Denver Public School graduate and a graduate from. He's a father and a husband. Welcome to the table, Tere. And the lady of the night. Her name is Timaya Johnson. She works with Heart and Hand Center as the ED for youth and their families. Timaya holds a bachelor's and a master's degree. She's passionate about working with underprivileged populations and being an advocate for social. Tonight that she just came back from Kenya. And probably we can drag her to go live in Kenya and do what she's doing more with her sister who is a doctor. Welcome to the table. All right. I believe the audience is ready, so we'll just go to it. I would like to start by saying, as you introduce yourself and your organization, also give a little background on why the. So panelists, you would take 2 minutes, and I'll start with our lady, Timaya.
First and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here this evening, and thank you to Papa for giving me the opportunity to speak about experience in the education system. I have been privileged to be on the leadership team since I arrived in Denver almost 8 years ago. I worked for Denver Public Schools in addition to CSI, also known as the Colorado. Was actually a part of my woman's life as an adult, and it's amazing to see how much she has grown and thrived over the time, so I'm so proud of you. I also have a daughter who is 13 who attends a Denver public school. She actually started her educational career in Cherry Creek schools. Programs for youth here in Denver. We also have a program that is college and career readiness. The purpose of that program is to ensure that young people are thinking about post-secondary. So whether that be vocation, or going to college or thinking about a career path, we want to make sure that our young people have access and opportunity, resources and support to ensure that they are set up for success. And we also work alongside their families to ensure that they have resources needed for long-term sustainability to keep our young people in school. Experience there. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, same question, we'll send it to Tere.
Y'all, my name is Tere Esquibel. I am the executive director of EDNIUM, the Alumni Collective. We are action focused with public school alumni 30 and under to change the way cities both educate and reinvest in their. This man is reading my mind. I don't got nothing else to say today, but this topic is important for me for a variety of different reasons. Number one, obviously, we work with we were supposed to do in order to ensure a positive outcome, and we're given a high five, a pat on the back, and a thumbs up, and told good luck. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. I'm also a father. My son's here. If I sound a little tired, it's because he had me up at 5:30 this morning at the gym, and Dad needs some work, you know. 16 years old, and had a very interesting experience. My wife's family, coming from an immigrant family, back on you when you no longer fit their designated kind of criteria, and as life shifts, we're 100% just dedicated to making sure that happens, and understanding that we're trying to send my son into a world that maybe his educational experience isn't necessarily preparing him best for. How do I get to work with you all? And it's obviously an honor to be with. Got into the education policy world and got kind of gut punched with the realities of. And to tell me I was on stage here. Thanks.
Thank you. Goes to Imam Shafi.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. I said the best that I can offer you. I said, may peace of God be with you. Thank you. My name is Shafi. Muslims do call me Imam Shafi. Do not.
You're very good.
I have some African British accent in me, so tolerate me. And it's sweet, believe me. Yeah, it's sweet. I'm here for, first I'm, is it me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Is it working?
Yes.
Now? Okay, so I'm here to represent Muslims. Imam is an Islamic leader. We have many mosques, but every Imam is a Muslim leader, is a community leader that Muslims refer to. Okay. Secondly, our organization is called Islamic Outreach Center of Colorado. Just a name, but I'm a clergy or I'm here for 3 reasons. Preceded by the faith that I'm leading promotes knowledge and education. That is the first reason. The second reason, being the clergy or a leader, a Muslim leader, some people calls me Muslim pastor. Okay. A community that believes strongly that our progress as a community, our life should be based on knowledge. That also led me to be here. And lastly, I'm serving and dealing with youths and kids on daily basis. 3 times a week, on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. 250 kids. And they do talk to me about most of wants to object my presence here. Raise your hand. That's why I'm here.
Thank you very much. You all here because we all need the community and for the kids that we are serving to be able to serve them better. So one of the questions that was asked earlier in the first panel was the world is changing fast, but education is not. Do you agree or disagree? And if you agree, then what is the main thing that needs to change in education system to better serve our children? And I'll start with Tere.
Yes, I 100% agree. It is not. From high school, I graduated in 2011, which I'm told is old now, which was a surprise to me. But just thinking about how much the world has changed and how different of a world even my son is operating in. I was thinking about this the other day. My son doesn't really remember a time where there wasn't such a thing as like an iPad that you operate with. And now I'm hitting him with back in my day, like this was new, right? But even between that time, you have conversations with educators across the board, and you recognize that his curriculum is fundamentally the same exact curriculum that I went through when I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. Minus math. Apparently we change the way we do long division like every year. You have an outcry, and I talked to educational leaders, superintendents, school board members, alumni, students, parents, families. Anything around the lines, anywhere close of saying, yeah, I think we're doing this thing right. Right? Every single time we're hearing that something needs to change, something needs to bureaucratic, almost like inertia that gets and prevents our ability to actually make into how many jobs are built into. There's against the change that needs to happen, even when there's a lot of good intentions and well-intentioned folks in the system that want. I think it's seen even in the generations that we have in this room. There's zero reasons why my son and my daughter should be dealing with the same things I dealt with, and I graduated 11 years ago. And if that doesn't tell me it's not changing, I don't know what does.
Very true, very true. It's just an interesting perspective to look at it from 11 years ago, same things being thought. And if you want, if we have people here who would like testify, you look at the curriculum and the syllabus and it's just still the same, and you ask yourself why. So that's a very great
Okay, yeah, the world and education is left behind a little bit. Advance when the foundations upon which it was built has not been activated, when the foundations on which it was built that conditioned us to what all of us are crying for has sincerely. We are still living on denial. Promote education. Education is the key. But most of us are crying here. Mm-hmm. So this is a result of that foundation. How then can education change? Another point is it is unfortunate that in the 21st century, when we boast that, you know, most of people in the world have been educated, but we still have a mentality of so in the absence of getting a job, what happens with your education? We haven't discussed that. Going to school, I'm going to work very hard. I want to obtain my degrees just to get a job. If you talk to some elder people, 80 years, 70 years, who went to school those days, they will give you a different perspective of what their understanding of education was. They were not able to make changes because it is not them who made the system, but they had a very, very different. Point number 3, our system has focused on what is called and so you find a child is reading all these literatures and all these books just to be tested to pass exams. Vacuum and absence of that intellectuality, that one. And so we are programmed. We are programmed to learn, to be educated, follow the rules, but do not reason with what you are learning. You cannot question. And of course, if you question, then you may be given. Last part is, how can education be advanced when a big portion of education that we should be given is hidden and concealed, especially when it comes to history. And I will talk openly, like is not even 50% history of America. And this is what has happened in other areas of knowledge. It has been politicized, it has been commercialized, and selfishly of the world to understand that education that we talk about is only what is taught in one country or two. And can education advance? Yes, the world and life is advancing, but education is not.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I just want. I had a coffee meeting this morning with one doctor I see you, and in the meeting it was just the two of us having that meeting, and she made a comment. She said, with the education system right now, what we need to trace is where the money is. So it comes back to buttress what you just said. Where is the money? If you trace whatever is happening to the children and to the parents and to all that is going on, when you get to that point where the money is, then you totally understand why what is happening. Because then, if the money that is coming to you from the government or from foundations tells you that you cannot use that money to advance change, you can only use that money for that poor guy who is bright enough, who needs that little help to be able to advance better, you cannot use it. Then that is what would happen with what we're seeing. Be able to understand the underlying agenda to what is happening. And so I really like that point. Thank you so much. And
I mean, I agree with everything that in terms of to be a teacher. We watched this video, and in the clip about collecting all of this data, but yet we are slow to do anything with the data to implement change.
Yep.
And so, I mean, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a
different result. Yeah.
We are functioning, and we're not functioning. We are in a system that is hundreds of years old. Diverse, inclusive. Should I keep going?
Keep going, keep going.
It starts with us. It starts with the people who are in this room. We have to collectively work together in order to make our voice be heard. I can tell you, education, and to have the Board of Education literally shut our school down within 2 years of us being open was the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever experienced. I know that the system as is has to change, and so therefore I continue to get up each and every day in order to try to see how can we be better, how can we generation after them and the generations to come to adjust. Another phrase I learned when I was a teacher is monitor to adjust.
Just, I love that. I love that. So we'll move on to the third question, and it's, some would say that it's unfair to be a Christian. District leaders are doing the best they can. The fact is, less than 50% of the state's K-12 students are performing at grade level. Educators have a very difficult job. We all know that. And parents and students and receive better service. That is also correct, because we heard that from Jason, where he made that comment when the first panel was talking. How do you reconcile those two ideas? And I'll start from Imam Shafi.
Try to deal with it. How do we recognize without appreciating the positive part of what education has produced and resulted to? We are talking here because we can read and write. Look at how doctor, he wasn't even talking. You know. Of the system, and we have to appreciate that there is positive part of education. We have to, right? A good critic is a person who appreciates the positive part, and then we deal with it. It would be unfair to meet here and say that everything is fine. If we meet here and we say everything is fine, then we have to problems positively. We look for solutions. If our government tries their best, but deficit, we have to say that, because that is a message that will reach the government, and I'm very sure that they're going to sit down. If there is a problem with our in school safety, a sister was asked here from the previous panelists, do you feel safe of being in school? Especially my sister here, Maimuna. And also my big sister from my neighbor, Tanzania, was no. And she gave a very, 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 a personal experience of what happened to her child. So we have to say that, there is not enough safety. A year doesn't pass. Are we going to make that a song and say that it's a corona? And then we find a way of, masking our nose and mouth and how to sanitize. But we are not going to, sanitize Last part, if there is a problem with, for example, teachers, we see how teachers are, their salaries are decreasing. A teacher is a very important person in the society. You would have not been a professor or a doctor except by the effort and investment of a teacher in you. But we have this paying them well. So this is what is happening, and I'm a preacher, right? So the reality is that we have to mention the problems and then say, hey, government, you have tried your best, but you have not done enough. If we have, for example, insecurity and violence in schools, include bullying, include drugs, include harassment, include, racism, we have to say that those problems the solution. I have two solutions. One, blaming the government alone, blaming our institutions alone is not enough, and also choking our necks as parents that it's you who are not involved in your students' affairs is not enough. The only solution is, and we should leave this hall, that this is a collective effort. Your problem should not only be solved by the government, but the government, that they are limited. They are governing, but different cultures. It's a high time that especially America recognize, accept, respect, and accommodate different cultures, different religion, different people, because it is only America that if Americans go to Kenya, we say, oh, a professor, and if he needs a job, he will get. But if you are a professor in Sudan or a professor in Saudi Arabia, a doctor who is known at national level, since you have to go back to school, they need to know that we have what they don't have, and they have what we don't have. They need to benefit from us morally and also experience-wise. This problem will be solved. Did I preach enough?
You did preach enough. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you very much. The next question. At African Leadership Group with solutions. Can you give any example of things that schools and districts are doing well and need to do more of? Or maybe provide any idea you have of what schools and districts can do better? Timia.
Yes, I would say that creating opportunities such as this, where we're able, where we have people who are in the work doing community members, be able to have a seat at the table to share their first-hand experience of what it is that we beyond there. When you guys go back to, and you guys meaning district leaders or people in government, when you're gathering this information, we need to, what you heard might not necessarily translate, because it's always easy for you to take what I said and make it look like something different. So continuing the conversation, I think, is going to be something extremely important. They need that we're sitting here trying to so any opportunity where we can get their input their feedback on what it is we're doing is so valued and extremely important. We have to create space and opportunity for them to be able to have that voice, while also, trying to guide them a little bit, because sometimes and so, it's us working together, collaboration going. Let's make sure that we have a seat at the table. Let's break down the doors. Let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That same question goes. Can you give any example of things that schools and districts are doing well and need to do more of? Or maybe provide any ideas you have of what schools and districts can do better?
Absolutely. Things that are working well, right? If just 3 quick points. Number one is I very intentionally walk into this specifically because I want to see how I'm going to be a little bit of an interesting thing. And what you find is the way that you're welcomed into a building. And my dad would always tell me this: pick up your pants, son. I remember that when I was in high school. But the way that parents and families are perceived by a lot of the school administrators walking in, you can almost do an experience translation there. So I'd say it works. There's a lot of things that are working if you fit the mold and you demonstrate and present the way that put a pin in that. Number one. Number two is, because every single person who graduated from school said, hey, nobody taught me about money. Who here learned about money at school? Maybe one, right? This from the perspective of recent alumni, and we talked to the board. This was in Denver Public Schools. We talked to the board, the district administration. You talk to the superintendent. You know what the issue is going to be? Oh, it's going to be the teachers union. Teachers union said, that's amazing. We want to do that. You know who the problem is? The principals union. The principals union said, that's amazing. We should do that. You know who the problem is? What we found is there's all this energy and synergy around getting something done. But it's we're passing the buck in this circular motion that which ultimately corrodes trust when you're building with community like this. So we've identified the solution. The administrators have heard us, but then when it comes to my job, and you're going to find the groups like ALG and hopefully Ednium that are going to keep knocking at that door and say, hey, remember. Number three, what we're also seeing is that I don't think anybody gets into education because they want to harm children. So that much, right? People are getting into education, yet all of our metrics of success rather than outcomes. And so there's a he has, it says celebrating first downs like touchdowns come with a price. And that really resonated with me because what happens, test scores, which is an input, maybe college acceptance rates, maybe even college graduation rates. But where's that kid at when he's 25? Do we have a solid understanding of where our students are landing and how they're able to thrive? I asked a bunch of people and I have yet to receive an answer that we're even tracking it. And so one of the things that we're hearing is people saying we need a broader definition of success. And oftentimes what we're hearing are three fundamental values. I want enough money to be able to take care of me and my family and maybe leave some to my little man. I want to have quality personal and professional relationships. And I want to have a sense of purpose that I feel like those three things as consistent metrics of what an outcome. I've yet to see metric whether or not we're pushing towards that outcome and working backwards collectively.
Thank you, panelists. It's been a open the mic up to the audience. We'll take 2 questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. My name is Mahi, and I really appreciate the views that you gave us today. The question that I have is, it is a view and at the same time so that they can be successful, so that they can win in life, so that education is very expensive when you go to the university. Collectively, graduates from different unpaid balance, which is massive, and we still are sending our kids to the school. And there is a sandwich kind of generation where people do not have anything for their retirement. We love our kids to win. Surprisingly, in Colorado, high schools and districts are not required to educate our kids and how to use money and stuff like that. So what is your view on that?
Anyone want to answer that? Okay.
I've been learning through TikTok University on how personal finance. There's just so much information there that wasn't taught when I was in school, like many other students. And I feel like, you know, as a mom of a soon-to-be 14-year-old, we've been talking a lot about post-secondary, and there's some rumblings there that she may not necessarily want to go to college. Me, as a Black woman, understanding that there was a time in America where going to college would have been a whole struggle with the concept of her not taking advantage of that. Myself, is this very possible for her to still be successful without necessarily incurring that debt? That just because I'm like, oh, well, you have to get this paper because once upon a time ago you couldn't. And so to his point, and also as much as we can start talking with our kids real about passive income, I think that those are all going to be key things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll pick our second question.
Fish.
Oh.
I am one of the board of elders in ALG, and a business summit. And I'm surprised that when education is the foundation, you don't see that many people today. So, but I would like to say thank you for coming. Education is the foundation, yes, but do we even invest in there our time, our energy? So the main question that I have, or idea is, we've been talking the world is changing. So what kind of change are we talking about? So with that, we have to be very specific. Yes, technology is changing. The tools that makes have computers right now. We have calculators. So the first time I saw computer and calculator is in college. But my kids saw school. So first time I came in here in this country in '98, I was surprised that I was taking calculus. I'm an engineer, by the way. So I was taking calculus and did it with calculator, and then they finished it. I stayed there an hour behind. I was asking myself, what is going on? And the teacher told me, Fish, you gotta have calculator. So we are talking about changing. Are we ready to change ourselves? Do we invest and take time to know the technology out there, to have the skill set, what it takes to be a professional in college? We have people with PhD, they can do nothing. When we are saying like, we need change, what kind of change? I just want to throw that out. What kind of change are we talking about?
Thank you very much, Fish. I'll throw that question to Tere.
That's the big question of today, right? Number one is I think the generations, particularly the younger generation, has already proven to us that they're ready to change. And they're doing that in a lot of of our institutions are not being kept, and therefore they're finding alternative paths to achieve their definition of success. And a lot of working for them when they just don't go to class, right? And every single step of the way, the people that we're trying to serve are telling us, whether that be verbally or through their action, that they are willing to make the change. The question I have for institutions, and part of the reason why I was excited to be on the panel here, is what I keep hearing from institutions consistently is, this is how you need to change community in order to fit any type of action that seems to be taken is to the benefit of the perpetuation of the institution itself, rather than the people that it's trying to serve or claims that it serves, if that makes sense. And so that's number one. I think when we see a kid ditching class, obviously there was something that seemed more interesting than that particular class. How do we make sure the curriculum, and if you talk to them, they will tell you, I am not learning anything that I think is of value. Whether they're right or wrong, the point and the fact remains that they don't see this is on the institutions themselves to shift. And if we don't evolve as an institution, if higher ed especially doesn't evolve, the industry is going to die. Relevant curriculum is an easy one. I think a real clear, shared, positive definition of success collectively that we can align on, and then backwards planning in terms of what's actually being presented in the school. Much more that I wish we had more time.
All right. To this one, he wants to give an answer.
I requested for 1 minute, but that is 2 minutes. When we talk about change, I know in the room we have people who believes in God and people who don't believe in God. Like God says that He is not going to change us. Initiative of changing what is within ourselves. The change does not start with pointing fingers to somebody else, it starts by us. Right. It is the government, and we are control. That is why we are saying the government. So the change, number one, starts by the government. It starts by parents' involvement, because there is less parents' involvement. Just like engineer said that, when we had the other gathering or meeting, the room was packed. But today, the room is not packed. That shows that we are less involved in educational or, matters of education. And then the community we need to get rid of selfishness. Community son. In America, my son is only mine. So there is that type of selfishness that you do not even know. You don't know. Another thing, so government needs to do this. They need to calm down and tell us this is our curriculum. This is the effort that we have been making. This is what we've been doing. This is what we've been funding. And then we say, let us talk. Government, people in leadership, professors, and we say, this is the curriculum. Can we ask one question? Where did the rain start beating us? What went wrong? This perfect curriculum, if it's that perfect. And then we agree that this part works, but this practically we come with some resolutions on how to take it forward. About education and failures, there are some contributing factors, such as poverty, hunger. Something as simple as hunger. Do you know that there are kids who are only having breakfast in school? And when that breakfast is not there, like during weekend, this child is, has no food. How are you gonna concentrate to study, to listen to your teacher when your stomach is empty? We've said everything. Health. Problem and challenge of these youths. What mechanism do we have before we leave it for the government, right? You see? So this, because you don't know. And don't forget that when we talk as refugees, politicized systems. So somebody saw the dead, people were killed, maybe somebody escaped. Do not tell me that the whole family is going to be okay. So can we agree on one thing? We also need to agree on morals, ethics, because education does not produce moral. We together need to agree on how are we going to help our children morally. You can be a professor, you can be a doctor, you can be an engineer, but you are zero morally. I don't know if this we're going to say it is objective or subjective, but these are my advice. Did I take 1 minute or 2?
You took 5.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I said I was going to take 2 questions, but I have a young man here. And I want to take that young man's question. So please, young man, go for it.
Hi, my name's Avery. Wait, okay, it's working. Let's see. So you
hear you. You're good.
Feel free to ask questions about my question. So if you guys have been talking about like all the problems within like the school system and like how things have been like curving it and like kind of like coming in on so going on to improve it because everybody here really has been talking about has really been talking about what we can do to fix like education, but then what are we gonna do with the students to actually help them?
That's a very brilliant. I'll start with Imam Shafi, but this time around we give Imam Shafi 1 minute. Thank you so much.
We need to be involved. Say that I'm always in my children's life. We need to be their friends. We need to reduce dictating. We need to assess and know that they are just innocent and vulnerable kids. They are growing. They are trying to identify grown-ups. You this and you that, and we tease them with police, but we forget that it's a process. It is gone.
Thank you.
Not yet. You still have. Thank you so much. That was 30 seconds. Thank you. One. A young man like you in my house, and I'll tell you, I had a younger one. He's so young. I had a younger one who was in 4th grade, and he came every time complaining. This was a GT student, and this kid came back and said, I'm no more interested in school. And I asked him, why are you not interested in school? And he said to me, because they keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Oh, am I right? Okay.
Yeah, you're completely right.
He said that, and immediately this kid lost interest, and his grades started falling. From A, he was getting B's. And I was alarmed, so I went to the teacher, because my student is not a C student. He's an A student. You can track him. He skipped 1 grade. So what's happening? And she's like, oh, well, I don't know. So I sat down with him as a solution to ask him, okay, so a whole weekend it was just me and him. And so we would chat, we'd take a walk, and I was just trying to fish out what the problem was. And he was able to come out to tell me, well, I had to stop, 1, because they were repeating the same thing I already knew, and 2, the teacher kept calling specific students in the class hands and nothing. And this were unfortunately white students. He is black, and he is the 1% in that class. And so that made him think that class was not for him. So in terms of solution, the teacher, nothing was done. I went to the headmistress and I pushed for it. This teacher deal with students. 6th grade, he's doing 6th and 7th math. Just because I went in and just because he was open. So as a student, my advice to you is you have to be able to be open. If your parents are not giving you the opportunity to be open, parents are not giving you the opportunity to speak to that you can share your frustration with, that adult can go and help solve that for you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Sorry, where do I put the microphone?
Can you guys hear me? Yes. Awesome. Perfect. So as we heard from our parents, from our students, from our community members, there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And it's very important, because me, I'm tired of these conversations. As they said, it's becoming repetitive. It's going in a cycle, and it's not going anywhere. I've been in the education space for over 5 years now. I've heard from parents, I've heard from teachers, and I've heard from what's happening here. Conversations, we have it, we go back tomorrow and live our daily life. About solutions, we talk about the outcomes, but there's never action behind it. Never any action. We talk about systems. These systems that have been designed America has the best education system. Just because that's what we think. But we don't know this system is broken. And it's broken. The next generation, as Tere said, 10 years ago, I read it, about 10 years ago, we're about to have Untitled. And I'm talking to kids on a daily basis. We have a YouTube program. And a lot of times in these, what is left out is a student voice. It's a bunch of adults making this politics. Issues, parent issues. And what I want to challenge you all tonight is not to just leave this here. Not to just leave what's heard today here. We heard from a child, Maimuna. We heard from a parent, Kunda. Samuel. I was part of Indian. And I hear what alumni are saying. To me, the community work you are doing, board was not listening to. And she needed our support. Your words were valued. Your knowledge was valued. Mr. Mordecai, your expertise, your knowledge, your understanding, thank you for sharing that with us. Not again, please, let's hear the children's voice. Superintendents that are here, principals that are here, teachers that are here, school board members that are elected that are here. Don't talk about community work or parent engagement when it's election time. Because a lot of times that's what I hear. And I know you guys come every once a year and never come back again until election time. But we want to work with you guys. Want to be able to solve this. Because this is a broken system. No other way to say it. But please let this conversation continue. Please let's start finding solutions. Please let's have these tables again. Let us all sit down at this table. And our parents, I'm challenging you all to be more involved. This room should be filled with parents. Because I know hundreds and thousands of parents in the community that I talk to on a daily basis that are not here today. And it's all because of communication. Language barrier. We're working on that. And at school, you should be able to provide translations when you're sending communications at home. It shouldn't be up to organizations like ALG to be translating for families. There's funding available. And again, it goes back to the money. It goes back to money. That's the root. And again, thank you all for coming. Thank you to the superintendents. Rico, thank you for being here tonight. And it takes that, just willingness to be here and listen. Elected officials, board members, thank you for being here. From Cherry Creek to APS, thank you for being here. Teachers, the teacher union, it's all collective efforts, like the Imam said. It's all of us coming together to find these solutions. You heard some recommendations, great recommendations as well. Now let's follow up. Let's follow. Thank you to the Parent Engagement Committee for you all for putting this together. Give yourself a round of applause. Our amazing team. Mama Bear over here, thank you. Kathy, wherever you are, thank you. And Miriam, Farmer, all our day. And before I leave, I just want to invite you all to the events that are coming this week. So let's pack the house. So let's pack the business summit this Wednesday. Same time, same place. So be here. And this Saturday, waiting to wear, come out. Tickets are available at U. You also continue to support the work that ALG is doing. All these events and programs we offer to the community for free. So funders, And those funders that are here tonight, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to our community. And also, thank you all for being here tonight. I'll see you at the gala. I'm looking for each one of you. And I want all as well.
Panelists.
And Dr. Mordecai.
So, okay. Those over there.